Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a phenomenal woman that I had the pleasure of recently connecting with across the social media lines. Entrepreneur, she's a best-selling author. She is just a woman of many talents. In the game of media, helping business owners out in every facet and form. But her most important title is that she's a woman of God, and she's taking time out of a very busy schedule to hang out with us this evening to share our journey with the hopes of encouraging, inspiring, and uplifting others, especially when it comes to dealing with the challenges and adversities of life. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you our special guest this evening, Miss Sharise Johnson-Moore. Sharise, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. And how are you? How are you doing this evening?
I am awesome. I am awesome, and I am excited to have you aboard. This has been in the works for a while now, and so we are finally here, and so I'm glad and excited about what you have to share. I know I'm going to be blessed. I know my listeners are going to be blessed. So, with that said, again, thank you for that and taking out time out of your very busy schedule to do so. Before we do jump into our segments, however, I do want to give you, of course, an opportunity to give a brief introduction of yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give our listeners a taste. Is Sharise Johnson-Moore.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Sharise Johnson-Moore, and I am the owner of Sharise Johnson-Moore LLC, where I help entrepreneurs gain exposure through a comprehensive suite of media, including advertising, broadcasting, publishing, and marketing. I am an award-winning podcaster of the Sharise Johnson-Moore's podcast, which can be found on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and 9 other podcasting distribution channels. Executive producer of 4 virtual broadcasting shows: Morning Word and Worship, Let's Talk Sunday, Entrepreneur Corners, and Author's Excerpt Sunday.
Love it, love it. See, I told you all. I told y'all she is wearing many hats. So I didn't even want to steal all the thunder because I knew she was gonna run them off for you. But clearly, she is not only not just being busy, but she's doing the works that God has anointed for her to do, and that's what makes her so special. And that's why I knew once I had an opportunity to connect with her online that she was definitely going to be a great fit for our show. So you're not going to be disappointed this evening, and I know she's got a powerful story to share. So I'm not going to waste any more time. We're going to jump right into this thing. So, Sharise, as is customary, anybody that comes on my show, one of the things that I like to take the opportunity to do, especially as we begin to discuss what your journey is all about, is I really feel it's important for us to take a moment of reflection to kind of go back to the beginnings, if you will, of where that story begins, because a lot of things that go on earlier on in life, even as far back as childhood, whether it's the people that we meet, whether it's circumstances that happen to us, good, bad, or otherwise, it may not always come together and make sense, if you will, at that moment in time. But as you age, as you gain more experiences of life, and of course, for those of us who have truly identified what our purpose in life is and how God expects us to walk in that purpose, now all of a sudden the light bulbs begin to come on, the dots begin to get connected a little bit more, and it starts to make sense. This is why I had to go through what I had to go through. This is why I had the encounters that I had, etc. So, with that said, if you would take us back to the beginning of where your journey starts. And in doing so, kind of share with us, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there's any particular challenges that come to mind, you can share those as well. Just kind of give us the foundational basis of where your story begins.
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, uh, July 24th, 1971. And I was raised by my father's mother, my grandmother, my father's mother. And Um, and the childhood experiences that I had as a child, they were, playful, joyful, and then we had a change in our lives where me and my grandparents we moved to Portsmouth, Virginia when I was 7, and that was a drastic change for me because I different environment, a very very different environment where I would see my father, but we wouldn't interact at all. My mother would come visit, but she never really paid me any attention when she was there because both of my parents they were doing living their own lives, living their own lives, and being raised by grandparents, it was very cool, calm, and collected atmosphere. Now, when the parents came around, it was very um, a drastic change. And so I dealt with, a lot of things in my life, as far as some trauma events, and I wanted to, but my your grandma and granny still kept me, they held it down, and life was to the point where um very difficult for me because I dealt with um sexual abuse early on in life, and feeling abandoned by my parents, and then feeling like didn't nobody want me. So I am a suicide survivor. Tried to commit suicide at 16, and looking for love in all the wrong places in life, older I got. And so my journey, it tells about the good, bad, and the ugly, and I don't hinder that from anyone. I don't hide it from anyone, because your story can help somebody else's life, and so just early childhood, had to deal with, parents that, just didn't have their selves together. And now I'm older, I understand that they were not taught that. They were not taught how to deal with life, in a sober state of mind, because both my parents, they drank all the time. And, and so I had to work around and maneuver with that as a child. And, and grandma and granddaddy were always there. And they helped, they protected me, they loved me. And I'm so thankful for my grandmother, because she taught me a lot of things, taught me a lot of things about how to be a woman and how to maneuver, in life. And I think that's where I get my entrepreneurial spirit from. So that's how my childhood was. So yes, sir.
Wow. Wow. Well, first off, let me thank you for your transparency and your honesty in sharing that. Even though that, like you said, even though that was well back in the beginning of your story, it can never be easy to discuss. But at the same time, I appreciate the fact that you acknowledge that everybody has a story to tell.
Hmm.
And it doesn't, and the story isn't always going to be happy go lucky where everything was perfect and went according to plans or exceeded expectations. In fact, some of the greatest testimonies that we have are going to include moments in time where there was some trial, where there was some tribulations, where there was some stormy moments. But this is
Yes.
why I like to have this part of the conversation, because again, to what you just made mention of is your love for entrepreneurship, you getting into being an author, being a podcast host, and the platforms that you are placing yourself in and indulging yourself in, being transparent and being vulnerable. It would be hard to imagine you being able to do that at the high level that you're doing it at, had you not gone through some of the
Yeah.
things that you've gone through. So that's why I say we may not understand,
Mm-hmm.
why don't I have the bond, like in your case, why don't I have the bond, the connection with my parents that I would have ideally liked to have? Why would I have to be subjected to, the traumatic experience of any type of sexual abuse, or just not feeling the nurturing that I felt like I should have had? Why was that not there? And it's not that God is trying to punish you. It's not
Hmm.
that you've been abandoned by him in any way. it's
Hmm.
it's really about the preparation process. Even though we don't have it all figured out at that point, he's preparing you for what is to come, for you to walk in, for you to be able to be utilized in the way that he's created you specifically to be able to impact the lives of others, as you approach walking into that purpose, which again is why you're doing what you're doing. Even when I think about the title of your book, coming to loving yourself. That the title alone speaks volumes just in the brief information that you just shared about coming up. I mean, because this is
Hmm.
what it's all about. You identifying, that I am worthy, that I do have value,
Yes.
that I do matter. And so if you can, be vulnerable and transparent and sharing that about yourself, then how
Hmm.
many other people out there whose lives that you can impact as well, who are feeling that same void,
Yes.
and need somebody to let them know, yeah, I am important. That in spite of the things
Mm.
that I've had to endure and go through, in spite of maybe some of the challenges that have come my way. So
Yes.
again, this is very key that you shared what you shared so far, and and like I said, it's just a testament to how those experiences, how those encounters matter. There, nothing in our life happens random. There's nothing about it. There's nothing, even though it may seem to us it's by chance or a string of bad luck. No,
Hmm.
everything is very well calculated out by our Creator.
Yes.
And we just have to get to the point where through our relationship with Him,
Yes.
we can hear from Him, that we can see, begin to make sense of it all, so that we
Yes.
know exactly what path we should be on, so that we don't get caught up in the distractions and the other deterrences that, of course, as you know, the enemy wants us to get caught up in, because he doesn't want us to be on path in our purpose, in the power and in the authority that God is wanting us to be in. So
Yes.
again, I appreciate you sharing that. So Sharice, as you know, obviously we go through our childhoods, we have those experiences, again, good, bad, or otherwise. But as you enter into adulthood, those experiences don't really minimize. In fact, they come in more frequent nature, and in some instances, some of those storms can come even at more intense
Yeah.
levels. So much so that every now and then we get hit with storms in life that are sort of a gut punch to us, sort of knock the wind out of us,
Yeah.
if you think about it. And we might find ourselves in those moments feeling, a weight, a pressure on us that, in that moment, we might feel like this is impossible to
Man.
overcome. This is, insurmountable. I don't see a way around it. I don't see a way through it. I don't have enough money in my bank account to make it go away. I don't have enough contacts in my phone
Right.
to reach out for that
Hmm.
lifeline or that favor to get me out of this. What am I
Yes.
to do? And so, with that said, if you would tell us about a time felt just like that, where you felt defeated, you felt helpless, you felt hopeless, you didn't know how you were going to get out that situation. Obviously, you're here today, still standing upright, breathing, and thanks to
Hmm.
God. So we know that He made a way, but maybe back then you had your questions, you had your fears, you had your worries and your anxieties about it. So if you would
Yes.
share with us a time where you felt like that, and what was ultimately the turning point in that situation where you did actually begin to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming up out of it.
Okay. So it goes to this point of dealing with the death of my three most important loved ones. My grandmother, she has a heart attack in November of 2011. I am her caregiver because they placed her on hospice. And in that moment of me taking care of her, God started doing some changes because up until she had her heart attack, I was a prostitute, I was a crackhead, a drug addict, I was a thief, I was a liar, I was a cheat, I was, you can name all seven deadly sins, right? I was committing them, right? And this pivotal moment of her having her heart attack and being placed on hospice, I had to take care of her. Okay. And during the process of me taking care of her, I didn't know how to take care of her in the bed and clean her up and all that. So I called my cousin. My cousin is a certified nurse assistant. So I said, "Cuz, can you come over here and teach me how to do this, how to take care of her?" So my cousin come over, teach me how to take care of her, and it really becomes really interesting to me. So, um, so my grandma passes, and I decided to go to school, become a certified nurse assistant. And I stopped getting high when she had her. When I started taking care of her, I didn't get high no more. I stopped getting high. I stopped doing all that. I was just too afraid. My mind was, it's got to be something else out of life than what I was already doing. So, and while taking care of her, I learned how to, do all the caregiving and things like that. So after she passed, um, after she passed, I got a job as a certified nurse assistant. And then here go 3 years later, my father passes 2 weeks before he passes 3 years later, 2 weeks before my birthday, July the 14th of 2014. Okay. So I'm sitting there like, oh man, really? Come on, Lord, what you trying to tell me? I really hadn't had time to grieve my grandmother because you got to get a house in order, you got to take care of personal business and all that. It's things you got to do after people pass away, and you're responsible for these things. Father passes away. I'm sitting there like, Lord, what is you trying to tell me? So, um, that happens. No time to grieve. Then I turn around and I get back to my life of get back to my life, and here goes 6 months later, my mother passes. And when she passes, I kind of fell out in the flow. My sister called me. My sister called me and told me my mother had passed. And I just said, Lord, what in the world? So I really kind of had that all that grief come down on top of me. The grief just came. It just like somebody hit me in the stomach with their sledgehammer, kind of grief. And so went to my mother's funeral. She lived in Detroit, Michigan, and went there, attended her funeral. And while sitting in the funeral, God spoke these words to me. He says, "Now it's time for you to write your book." And I'm sitting there like, looking at anybody else hear that? Right. And so then I sit there for a minute and the voice speaks them words again a second time. And I'm like, oh, kind of brushing it off. Then the third time the voice spoke to me, I said, okay, Lord, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. I'll be obedient, whatever you want. I must have spoke it out loud because my sister said, did you say something to me? You talking to me? And I said, no, baby, I'm talking to the good Lord, right? So in that moment of those three deaths, as I reflect, God was moving me closer and closer to Him. And when my mother passed, I really devoted myself. I really got into a really deeper connection with God because I had no one to call, to talk to, estranged siblings, but anyway, so my thing was, I said, well, I just have to turn to the Lord. So I decided I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to the Lord. So from that point on, I got home from my mother's funeral, and I got home from my mother's funeral, and the next day I started writing my book, Coming to Loving Yourself. Took me 2.5 years to write the book. And me and God got real close. I also attended theology school. So I have a bachelor's degree in theology. So and I'm a minister. And so my life from that day from my grandma passing up until now has been totally God. I'm on God's assignment. And no, it's not been easy. No, it's not been something, all this world trouble and things like that, they happen. But God has given me a new outlook. and a new perspective about how I can handle things that come at me, how they approach me, how I handle stuff, right? And whenever something comes upon me that I feel like I can't handle, I'd be like, yeah, I'd be deep in prayer. I go deep in prayer. I go deep into meditation. I read my word. And I have been on this journey where God has given me this assignment, and everything I do, God has given me the assignment for. It's not, oh, I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna just do this, And I realized that I had to use discernment and block out the world. So, um, everything that I do is given to me by God. So that's how I handle adversity. I say, okay, God, something's happening. I don't know what's going on, and I get into my word and I pray. And child, let me tell you, God has delivered me from the rat, the from the fowler and from pestilence and from depression and anxiety, and because I put it all in His hands, and He has made a way out of way. I Let me tell you, some things I don't even know how I got out of, and then I look back over my whole entire life, and He's been watching. He's had a hedge of protection over me all that time, from childhood up until now, and I realized that. And and some, like say, some things I might have went through in life, and it made me stronger, made me wiser, it made me become a more wiser person, and have the knowledge of, I have to let God do the leading, and I have to step back. I had to let God do the leading and step back from a lot of things. And uh all the fight, the battle is God's and not mine. So that is where we at with that at the moment. So yes, God's been leading and guiding me every step of the way, and I wouldn't take nothing for my journey.
Wow, wow. Again, very powerful testimony that you just shared. Again, and I thank you for your transparency, for your willingness to be open, because these are very real things that people go through. We don't always talk about this kind of stuff, because it's natural in our flesh that the
Yeah.
things that we've gone through, the challenges that we have, or going through or challenged by in the present moment, we put on our mask, we put on our
Mhm.
smiles, and everybody might think that everything is great, because again, that we got a smile on our face, or maybe the way that we dress, or the car that we're driving, or the house that we're living in. Oh, they got it going on. Everything is perfect.
Mhm.
Not knowing
Mhm.
that you on the inside that you're hurting, not
Yes.
knowing on the inside that you're crying, not knowing on the inside that you're grieving, you know,
Mhm.
grieving over situations that took place years prior, which is why
Mhm.
when we talk about the subject of grief, it's always, one of the common things that's oftentimes mentioned for people who truly understand grief is that you can't put a clock on that. You can't tell somebody they should, you should be done grieving after, x number of weeks or months or
Yeah.
whatever, and that it should be done, it's time to move
Mhm.
on, because
Yeah.
everybody processes grief differently,
Right.
and for some of us, because we may be trying to be strong for other people, we kind of
Mhm.
put off directly taking that time out, because you even mentioned about that, saying, I never, by the time you got to your mother's death, which was the third of the trio of deaths,
Mhm.
you were still acknowledging the fact that I'm still grieving grandma
Yeah.
who died years prior, and I'm
Yes.
still grieving my father,
Mhm.
you know and even with the fact that even when you think about your parents, where you say you didn't have necessarily the closest of relationship, it still hurt you that
Yeah.
they were gone, because
Yes.
the three people that you felt like were the ones that you could talk to at some level,
Mhm.
some fashion or form, they were now all gone. So who do I go to?
Yeah.
Who do I
Who
who do I
that?
share my concerns, my worries, my fears, or even my good news? Who do I talk to about it now?
Right.
Because not here. But see, that's how God will use situations like that when he's trying to build that relationship. He's trying to build that rapport with you. But
Mm-hmm.
we're off into other things, other vices or what have you. he
Mhm.
has to allow certain storms to come into our life, again, not to destroy us, but
Yes.
to break us down to a level to where we finally get to a point where we don't have anybody else to go to but him.
Amen.
And it's a strategic setup so that when he has your
Yeah.
attention, finally,
Finally.
you've been doing your thing, and I've been there, done that myself. Been out here doing my
Mm-hmm.
thing. Only checking in with God when I was
Need
in
a fix.
a jam, and then as soon as He get me
Yep.
out of it, then I'm back doing my
Yep.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
there's a point. He'll let us work through that, and then He gets to the point and say, okay, it's
Enough
time.
of love.
It's
Enough
time
of
for you to.
love.
Enough of this. It's time for you to
Uh-huh.
level up. I have
Mm-hmm.
something for you. We have some works for you to do. So
Yes.
let me allow these storms to come into your existence and allow you to have to battle through that to the
Mm-hmm.
point to where eventually I'm going to get your attention. You're going to be looking at me, and then
Mm-hmm.
once I have your attention, then we're
Mm-hmm.
going to have a conversation.
Yes.
And you're going to be ready to hear what I have to say now because you're going to
Yeah.
be in that point of vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
where you're not going to have anybody else or anything else going to be able
Right.
to soothe whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
that you're dealing with. And so, we
Yeah.
have to be grateful and thankful to God that he has the wisdom that we don't necessarily have, but he has that wisdom to
Right.
set up those moments where he can speak to us and we can
Mm-hmm.
receive what he has to say. We hear it
Yeah.
and to my listeners, don't be surprised in the means or in the location or in the moment that you hear it. You said I heard it at my mother's funeral. Now,
Right.
that's the last thing that you're thinking of hearing,
Yeah.
not only hearing from, if you're going to hear from God at a funeral, you're thinking, maybe I'm hearing from God. He's telling me, that it's going to be all right and all that kind of thing. But you
Mm-hmm.
said, he told me at the funeral, it's time to write your book.
Mm-hmm.
What? Now, I would suspect that prior to that moment, you hadn't been thinking about writing the book. That was not on your bucket list of things to do. But then
No.
here is God speaking to you in one of your darkest moments. Here you are attending the funeral of your mother,
Mm-hmm.
the one who brought you life, and you're like, you telling me about writing a book?
Right.
Because where is that coming from? But what he was doing is it was his way of signaling to you, it's time to share your story with the world. I've allowed
Mm-hmm.
you to go through what you've gone through, but as you can
Mm-hmm.
see, I've held you, I've covered you this whole, as you mentioned, I had you covered all the time. I was never going to let you be taken out, even
Right.
even as far back as 16 years old when you were thinking about taking your life, when you tried it.
Mm-hmm.
If I
Mm-hmm.
wanted that to if I wanted that to be successful, it would have been successful. But I
Yes.
had work for you to do. You had assignments. There was purpose for you. So I
Yes.
wasn't going to let that moment of weakness in your life
Mm-hmm.
destroy you. I wasn't going to let those vices in life destroy you
Right.
because you had a story to tell. But I had to let you go through it
Yeah.
in order to get to this moment, to arrive at this time. And look what God did.
Right.
He didn't just tell you to write a book, but it was a whole change in perspective over your life.
Mm-hmm.
You get your degree in theology. Your commitment to the relationship with him is next level now. And it's like
Yes.
something that you hadn't prior to that moment. That wasn't a thing for you. I mean, you knew
No.
he existed. You knew what he was, you
Mm-hmm.
knew the general stuff, what he was about, but you wasn't locked in like this. And now God is using you in a mighty, magnificent way. You're a minister. You're on platforms and stages that are allowing you to not only just put out your particular worldly works, if you will. There's a lot of people who write books, but
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of people who write books in a way that professes God, that puts God out there, that incorporates God into their personal life experiences. You're not out here
Yes.
showboating saying how you did everything all by yourself on
Mm-hmm.
your own
Right.
and you
Yeah.
made it happen. You saying no. There
No.
was a power, there was a source that was bigger than me
Yes.
that is responsible for it all. That's what makes you relatable to people. That's what makes you able to identify and connect. And so to my listeners,
Yes.
Sharice has been very open and very vulnerable about the things that she's experienced and gone through and partaken in life. That should
Mm-hmm.
be that should be a sign to you. That should be hope to you that there's nothing that we could do that is so horrible, that's so off the rails,
Mm-hmm.
that God does not have enough love for us
Mm-hmm.
to say I still want you. You still mean so much to
Yes.
me, even though you had all of this other stuff going on in
Mm-hmm.
life. I'm not saying that I'm in alignment with it. I'm not saying that that's what I wanted for you,
Yeah.
but it needed to happen in order you to get to this point. He's still with us. He still had you covered.
Yes.
So let that be your source of encouragement. Let that be your source of hope for those of you who think that it's too late for me, that that there's no, I've done too much dirt. I can't I can't possibly be accepted by him. I got my
No.
shared dirt.
Uh,
Sharice shared hers, and we all, if we all are being
y'all,
real,
y'all dirty.
we could feel it. We all
Y'all.
dirty. We all filthy. We all a mess. The end
Right?
of That's not the end of our story. That's not the end of
Amen.
us. There's
It's
so much
not.
more, and so this is what makes moments like this, the sharing of stories like this, because everybody has a story. That's what makes the
Amen.
sharing of these stories so powerful, so important in understanding the importance of God, and understanding how He moves and how He uses the again the darkest moments of our lives, how He can use that and flip it into
Hmm.
some of the greatest blessings that we could ever
Yeah.
experience, things that we would have never thought were possible are
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
it's the norm for us, and
Yeah.
then some. And he continues to build and build and build on that for as long as He's determined for us to walk this earth. So again, I appreciate you again sharing what you shared, because this is great stuff, and a lot of lessons in this that we can draw
Yes.
from, and things apply to our lives right now, especially for those of us who are struggling and how to navigate
Hmm.
these adversities, and struggling, and how to right the ship, and how to make a
Yeah.
change, make a shift in our
Hmm.
mindset and in our behavior. So
Yes.
again, thank you for that. So
You
Sharice,
are.
you kind of tapped into this a little bit in our previous segment, but I
Hmm.
do want to make sure that that we don't leave out any nuggets in that. And that's in when you do find yourself, of course, obviously you've shared some very deep stuff, but when you do find yourself facing adversity, whether it's the deepness of some of the things, or sometimes it's just the regular day-to-day things that we deal with in life, a car repair that was unexpected, a financial situation that we didn't see coming, or some
Hmm.
other nuance that we have to deal with. What is it that when you do find yourself, if it's one of those days that I'm up against something, there's a moment of adversity, there's a challenge before me, what is it that you personally like to do that kind of works best for you to kind of keep a level head and focus as you're working through and processing through whatever that challenge is that you have before you?
Okay. Oh, how I process when I face adversity,
Mm-hmm.
when I face anything, I go to my word. As you can hear, I'm flipping these pages, right?
Nothing
And
wrong with that.
my thing is this is I read Psalms 23, 1 through 6, and then I go to Psalms 27, 1 through 14. And in in these words, I find solace. In these words, I find solace. Uh, you know, the Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He's making me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restored my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. When you change your whole perspective and God is leading you and not man, you know that you have no doubts, no fears, no trepidations, no worries, no stress, because you know God will handle all of that. And when it, it, I say for a person that does not have a relationship with God, start reading your word. Start reading the word of the Lord. and it becomes a part of your soul, of your spirit, of your inner being. And make God the head of your life. Make God the head, not the tail, not the I think about it. No, I'll talk to you today and talk to you tomorrow. Because as they say, you can't serve uh two masters. You can't serve Satan and God at the same time. You have to make up in your mind that you're gonna serve in a right way. You're gonna serve in a pure way. You're gonna be a total different person. Um, when I was out there in the street, and I was on drugs, I tried rehab, and my thing was I tried God for a little while, and then I walked away, and that's when I relapsed. When I for for a person that does not have that relationship with God, you got to dwell with Him night and day. You have to come and spend time with Him on a regular basis. Uh, it doesn't matter if you start off in the morning. Start off in the morning. Start off. If you see things coming at you, and you ask God, "Hey, God, how am I supposed to handle this stuff? How am I supposed to deal with this in my mind? How am I supposed to deal with this in my actions and in my thought process? Because everything starts in the mind. How you're going to handle things that come at you, at adversity that comes at you, and we all have choices, and God gives us that free will to make a choice. And that choice of what we make is, okay, I'm going to serve the Lord or the devil. Which one it going to be? Because I can't serve both. And when you make up in your mind that you want to do right in your life, you want to do right by your kids, when you want to do right by the way you live in, how you are doing everything, everyday activities and things like that, right? When you doing right, that's when Satan come at you harder.
Mm-hmm.
When you doing right, and you try and you want to live a life that is pure and pleasing to God, that's when Satan always has to come with more double than your trouble. And you as an individual have to learn, oh, okay, how I'm gonna handle this today, how I'm gonna deal with this today. And it also kind of starts with the mindset you wake up in the morning. Oh, when I get up in the morning, I start reading my word. I don't start my day any other way. I get right into my word, get out there, I pray, I wake up, pray, come, read the Bible, and spend time with God first thing in the morning. And ask him to lead me and guide me in the way that he want me to go. Not where I want to go, but the way he want me to go. And when these adversities and the stronger relationship you you gain in the Lord, the more easier these adversities that come upon you will not affect you as you thought. They will not bombard you. Have you going into depression? Have you going into an anxiety? Have you going popping pills and drinking? And you be like, Satan, you know, um, excuse me, but you don't got no power over here. You don't got no power. You know, the old song, you ain't got no power. Okay, anyway, so but the thing is the long the pure and the understanding that you have with God, you those adversities don't have an effect on you. You be like, man, go on somewhere and sit down in the corner, dude. Go sit down. You're not wanted here. You're not welcome. It's it is a thing of your strength in the Lord it becomes more powerful to repel these adversities when they come upon you. So prayer, supplication, and fasting. Fasting is a good is a way where you restrain yourself from desires of, the seven deadly sins, where you have, you eat too much, or you're always sitting down at the table, or you and sometimes fasting means you just sit still for a minute. Sit still, be quiet, have spend more time with God in prayer, you know and the more time you spend with him, the more relaxed your life will be, the more stress free you'll feel. Your blood pressure ain't gonna be all high, and you also get a power of discernment when it comes to people, places, and things. Your discernment, it goes to another level of people, places, and things, and God teaches you how to not to block out the world and the stuff that's thrown at you. You don't have you. I learned this. I learned this while walking with God. I don't have to react to everything that's coming at me or what people had to say. I don't have to react. Sometimes I'm like, they ain't got nothing to do with me. They ain't got nothing to do with me. So why you bringing that to me? That's not none of my business. Or you had the discernment about you meet new people and you don't get no good vibe from them. God's trying to tell you something. That person not for you, person not to be around. You have to learn how to listen to your inner voice, like I listened in the church when the God told me about the writing that book. I was not, my mind was on God. My brother was standing at the podium, and I'm sitting there like, but my mind was like, Lord, how am I gonna get through this? Tell me what to do. I think I was praying in the spirit when my brother was talking, because I tried to keep my emotions intact without falling out, without bawling, without crying. And I went into deep prayer sitting there in the pew. So I say, prayer, child. Get to praying, and find you someone that is in the word, doing right, walking right, teaching right, acting right, they're living a holy life. We know people ain't perfect, but find someone that you can really, really, really talk to. And because I go to God for everything. I go to God for everything. I don't, and I learn how to keep my business to myself too. A lot of times, I don't go out there and be talking to everybody, telling my business. This the most. You might get me in an interview talk like this, but but majority of the time it's like, you know, my inner thoughts, my inner beings. That's what I carry to. I carry to God, and then He helps me with what's in front of me, what I have to walk through. The valley of the shadow of death. I will fear no evil, and and then I say about the other one, Psalms 27, goes into the Lord is my light and my salvation. It says, the Lord is my light and salvation. Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I be afraid? Oh, I could go into praise and worship with you, but I'm not. But that is another one powerful for me. And the thing is, you got to read the whole. It says, when in 27:10, when my father and my mother forsake me, the Lord will take me up. Oh, yes, He will. So let God be your guide. Come unto God, say, God, I know I'm not perfect. I know I'm not doing right. Can you help me? I need help. I really need your help. I want to live a different life. I want to do something different in my life. I want to live right. I want to walk right. I want to talk right. And I need your guidance and your help. And God will hear your prayer. God will hear you. God knows all before you even ask him. He already know what you need before you ask him. So that's how I deal with my when I deal with adversity, and I tell others, prayer and supplication unto the Lord.
Love that. Love that. And everything that you spoke to is just in the essence of what it truly means to come as you are. So for my listeners, again, I know a lot of times, people will tune in and they may be thinking, or they'll be partaking in conversations like this, and they'll hear somebody say, "Well, you need to pray, or you need to get in your word." That to pray means that you have to do something over the top dramatic, or that to be able to get into your word, that you have to have a theology degree. The main thing that you have to do is just start. You just have to just get in there and do
Yeah.
a prayer, as you just stated. Just tell them how you feel. I mean,
Yeah.
again, forget all the fancy words. Quit trying to pretty it up or whatever. Just
Yeah.
speak. It's a
Mm-hmm.
conversation. That's what prayer ultimately is, a conversation between you and your daddy.
Yeah.
Just had a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and just be regular and raw with it. I mean, obviously we're going to be respectful, but
Yeah.
just keep it real. Just say what's on your heart.
Yes.
And he will, as you stated, he will receive that. He'll know exactly. He already knew what you needed, but part of being in a relationship, it's I use this example quite a bit. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you could be in a relationship with somebody and you could know that other person in your life loves you.
Yeah.
You may have no doubt about it in their mind that they love you, but every
Mm-hmm.
now and then it feels good to hear them say it, despite the
Yes.
fact that you know it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the way God is. He already knows your thoughts dealing with. He doesn't need you to say anything to him for him to know. But as part of the
Amen.
relationship, in order for it to get closer, the intimacy of it is when you voluntarily, when you intentionally share, when you intentionally talk to him. That's
Amen.
what brings forth that closeness, because we're communicating. We think
Mm-hmm.
about what are keys to a good, solid relationship. You got to have open communications. You got to be able to share your feelings. You got to be able to talk with one another and share your thoughts and your
Yes.
dreams and your fears and your all of that. He wants you to do
Yes.
all of that. That's that dependency on him, because in
Mm-hmm.
return, what he has to offer you is that comfort, that strength, that encouragement,
Yeah.
everything that you need to deal with, all the phases and challenges of life. And so, to what Sharice was speaking of, as you paid attention to what she was saying throughout this segment, she wasn't talking about, hey, I'm faced with a storm today, and now I'm reacting. She talked about, you got to have there's a mindset that you have to have. There's a way, there's a routine about yourself and how you interact with God, that you have to do on a regular basis, even if nothing is going on. There are things
Mm-hmm.
that you want to do. So it's about
Yep.
you already being ready and
Yep.
staying ready, versus, so then that way when the storm comes, you can respond to the storm, rather than, instead of reacting to the
Mm-hmm.
storm. Because when you're in a reactive mode, then you're more likely to be all scattered, and your emotions are running all over the place, and you don't have a clear thought process, and this is
Yes.
when the enemy can infiltrate and get you
Yes.
to do some things off the cuff without thinking, because you're
Mm-hmm.
responding in your emotion and not necessarily in your sound mind. You're not thinking it through. You're
Yes.
not processing it properly. So
Mm-hmm.
just get started. Just get
Amen.
started with somewhere. If that's not a thing that you've been doing, pick
Mm-hmm.
up that word. Don't worry. What if I don't understand all the words? The more you get in it, the more
Mm-hmm.
he will reveal that understanding to you. And then to the
Yeah.
last thing, to your point, if you have somebody, begin to incorporate people into your circle who know God and who are pursuing God like you're trying to do. So they can
Mm.
kind of help buffer you. They can kind of help fill in some of those voids and gaps that
Yes.
you're not as sharp on. They can help you to understand it a little bit better. Plus, you have somebody that when you are going through, you have
Mm-hmm.
somebody that you can talk to who's going to give you a like-minded, not so much telling you what you want to hear, but
Mm-hmm.
like-minded in the sense of telling you what you need to hear based
Mm-hmm.
upon what God says about it.
Yes.
That's what I mean by like-minded, because it's real easy to surround us with yes men and yes women that
Mm-hmm.
just tell us everything that we want to hear to make us feel good, you
Yeah.
know. And we
Right.
even experience that sometimes, sometimes unfortunately we experience that sometimes in churches where,
Mm-hmm.
a pastor may just preach a feel good word, to make everybody feel good,
Yes.
well,
Uh,
sometimes we need to be made uncomfortable, because
mm-hmm.
that helps us deal with our stuff.
Amen.
That helps us get out of the victim mentality of,
Mm-hmm.
well, why is this happening to me? Woe is me. Feel
Mm-hmm.
sorry for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We can never begin to compare what we go through when you think about what Jesus went through on our behalf. So when we
Come
when we
on now.
when, we,
Come
when
on.
we're quick to complain
Come
and
on.
moan and groan and whine and,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Yes.
the world is against me. God don't love me no more. No,
Mm-hmm.
no. Stop looking at your storms as negative events, but instead
Mhm.
looking at them as opportunities for growth,
Yep.
opportunities for development. So,
Yes.
so again, everything that you shared right there is so powerful, and a lot of this is a right now application that people can use in their lives, especially those who don't really have a process right now of what to do,
Right.
when they're facing those challenging times.
Mhm.
So again, thank you for sharing that. So
Oh, you're welcome.
so, Sharice, if you had the opportunity, when you as you reflect back on all of the things that you've gone through,
Mhm.
like I said, the good, the bad, the highs, the lows, and on all that's in between, if you could sit across the table from the younger Sharice, the Sharice who, had her period of time when she was kind of out there, that she didn't
Mhm.
know, her worth, her value. She didn't know how to properly handle,
Mhm.
moments of challenges and adversity. She was just kind of winging it, so to speak, and maybe had a sense of feeling lost and just not knowing just how to properly face those moments in a healthy and productive way. If you could sit
Yeah.
across from her and share with her some insights, I'm curious to know what is it that you would share with her that you wish that she would have known, that you think would have been valuable, would have been helpful for her, not so much to say that she wouldn't have had to go through anything, but that maybe she would have processed it a little bit better, or even to those who are listening right now that they might be stuck in that zone right now. They've been kind of doing it on their own, flying solo, but they're feeling, they want to change. They want to make that shift, but they just don't know what to do. They don't know how to get out of that funk that they're in and do things a better way, or do things that are more in alignment with how God would have us to do. What would be your words of encouragement to younger you as well as to them?
Um, what I would tell my younger self would be stay in the will of God. And God gives us all gifts and talents, right? And God gave me the gift of singing. I've been singing since I was 7 years old. Well, my grandma said I've been singing earlier than that, but I didn't realize until I was 7 years old when everybody started making me sing in church.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize how powerful my gift was. So I would tell my younger self, stay in church, keep singing for the Lord, and speak up for yourself. Speak up, because I was always told child place is supposed to be seen and not heard. And I think if I had that voice of speaking up for myself, I wouldn't have went through all those situations, and listen and tell my younger self, listen to your instincts when you around the wrong people. Listen to what the voice is telling you. Like, I mean, ooh, this one time, I give you this. This one time I listened. I listened to God. I was older, but I was somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be, and somebody pulled a gun out on me, and they said, "You're going to do such and such and such, and I'm not paying you." And I said, "Okay, over my dead body, right?"
Mm.
And I stood on that with two. I stood on that on business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the voice of the Lord say, "Pick the bag up and just walk out the door." So I listened to exactly what God was saying. I was in that moment. I picked the bag up and walked out the person's house. And I wasn't. I thought about. I said, "This person probably gonna shoot me in my back if I walk out the door." But in my spirit, I didn't. I felt comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
I felt safe. So um, I would tell my younger self, look, if you don't feel comfortable doing something, don't do it. You don't feel right in your spirit not to do so. Somebody trying to coerce you or talk you into and influence you. If it's not feeling it in your spirit, don't do it. And another thing, what I would listen to my younger self. When my granddaddy told me, you better get an education because that is something that they can't take away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And those were words of wisdom. And I took those words of wisdom to heart because I went back to college and I have an associate's degree in psychology at the age of 34. So, and listen, listen. That's what my I would tell my younger self is to listen. When I was being abused, I should have said something. When this was going on, I should have spoke up. And I did. I kind of spoke up to my parents about. I did listen to that spirit, or speak up and tell your parents how you really feel about them and what they're doing. And you know, um, because everybody got a voice, and don't let nobody take your voice away from you. Don't let nobody. That's how you feel. That's how you feel. You want to tell them. Might hurt their feelings, but I'd rather hurt your feelings, and you know how I feel, than to be cat and mouse. Messing around, shucking and jiving. Oh, I'm gonna just ease on down this topic. No, I'm gonna just tell
Mm-hmm.
you straight up. And that's one thing I learned to do in my older life, in my years of now,
Mm-hmm.
is to speak up for myself and to love myself and to don't let nobody change me. God made me a specific way and I'm happy with it. And that's what I would tell my younger self. Be you. Don't be nobody else. Be you. That's what I would say.
Love that. Love that. And just as you would share that with your younger self, that same message can resonate to any of our listeners right now that are just trying to figure out how do I break out of this rut that I'm in? How do I shift things a little bit differently where I can get on a more a better path that provides me that peace, that joy, that calm
Mm-hmm.
that I'm missing, that I'm lacking. Everything that you said, that's something that to those of you who are tuning in and you're trying to figure out, where do I start? What do I need to be looking for? These are the
Mm-hmm.
things that she's mentioning. These are the very things that you need to focus on and listen to what God is speaking to us all the time.
All the
It's
time.
just that we're not always listening.
No.
But when you get to the point where you start to actively listen
Mm-hmm.
and not so much, not just listen, but actually, respond to what it is that he's telling you to do, even if it doesn't all make sense. That's okay. The point
Mm-hmm.
is that you know who it's coming from. If you
Mm-hmm.
understand that the source, the reputation of the source, he is perfect in his wisdom. He is perfect in his ways. So nothing
Mm-hmm.
that he tells us, even if we don't have it all fully, understand it all, we don't grasp it
Mm-hmm.
all. One thing that you can rest assured on is that there's no flaw in it. There's no mistake in it. There's no error
Yeah.
in it. So
Yeah.
he will guide your steps accordingly. You just got to be willing and open to not only be obedient but to step out on faith and trust that process, because
Man.
it's a process that you can take to the bank. This is a process this unshakable, it's unbreakable, it's unwavering. It's He's got all the particulars, all the details, all everything that needs to be figured out has been figured out. You don't have
Yes.
to question him about anything. You don't have to. He don't have to explain it to you for you to take that leap. You got. But that
Mm-hmm.
again, it goes back to that relationship. Do you trust him?
Mm-hmm. Trust.
Do you trust him? And
Mm-hmm.
so everything that you just spoke of is standing on that. So again, appreciate that.
You're
So,
welcome.
Sharice, this has been a phenomenally awesome time spending with you. I anticipated that it was going to be a great conversation, and you have far exceeded those expectations in sharing your journey. It has been a blessing to me. I know it has been a blessing to my listeners, and I'm so thankful that we made it happen. And I'm excited that we were able to connect. And we're not even done with that, because I know our listeners don't know, but I have an opportunity coming up real soon where I'm gonna get a chance to be on her show,
Yeah.
and we get to hang out some
You
more,
know,
so
right?
so this is good. I mean, so that got me even more excited, because I know she's bringing that energy to us. I know what energy is going what's gonna pop up on her end, so so I'm just that much more hype about it. But again, nevertheless, I thank you so much for sharing as you have. It's such a powerful testimony that you've given us this evening,
You're
and it's
welcome.
been truly a blessing. But as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, before I let you go,
Hmm.
we do want to take an opportunity to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to love on you, to lift you up. So if you got anything professional